Can I try my idea of the reason for the cataclysm that's fast approaching, or
Sure.
the extension of novelty? Let me start at the beginning. The one definition of enlightenment, one narrow definition, is it's the growing together of the gap between desire and fulfillment. And I think what we have managed to accomplish with our culture is we've produced a society that is arranging for fulfillment and desire with technological systems performing to their utmost to pull that off. So people are becoming fulfilled on a physical level. They're becoming enlightened technically. But there's no matching change in how they feel about themselves. So there's this horror coming over the horizon of people finding themselves with everything they always wanted and feeling totally not right about it. If that to me characterizes the neighborhood I live in real well. People are going faster and faster and faster with more and more and more stuff and not feeling good about it. That if we get to the end point of that process, we come to a place where people are intensely frustrated because they've got everything but nothing is right. To me, that feels like a change of state time.
Well, yeah, somehow it's a real problem because a meme has gotten loose on this planet that is the social equivalent of cancer, in my opinion. And what it is it's capitalism. Capitalism does not serve human beings. It serves itself in the same way that cancer does not serve a human being. It serves itself. What I mean by this is that it fetishizes objects, and it tries to tell you that certain objects will make you happy if you can possess them. Well, then you work very hard to possess them, but then you're not happy. At the same time, it is raising these expectations in the hearts and minds of millions and millions of people that it knows it can't deliver to. If you cut all the rainforests and dug all the metals, you couldn't deliver the middle-class American lifestyle to the population of the planet. And the effort to do so would wreck the entire ecological system. So capitalism either has to transform itself from within, because no human being or institution can oppose it, or there has to come some force from the outside which will break it down. I don't know what that could be, unless it would be a revulsion over what the cost of practicing capitalism is. In other words, if we could create, and this is a job for media. The media has basically whored itself to the capitalist agenda and knows no way out. The media in the naive era, before all this stuff was figured out, was assumed to educate and inform the citizens so that rational decisions could be made. That's not what it's about now. Now it's to distort, manipulate, delude, and mislead. What is needed is a rediscovery of inner wealth. This is, again, the psychedelic thing. The reason people fetishize objects is because they have no accessible dimension of inner worth. They feel worthless without the Ferrari and the cuisine art and whatever this object is that they're into. Once you take psychedelics, you discover that you are shabby stuff compared to the inner wealth of your own imagination. But unless you know that, you will always want after that stuff. So my hope is, and it seems to accompany psychedelic use, I think, less interest in material possessions. Not that people dress in hair shirts and wander the byways, but I think people who take psychedelics make and lose money in a considerably more relaxed fashion than people who don't. Yeah.
There are several sources of such an enlightenment, that is inner wealth versus external wealth. One of them is trauma. A lot of families who lose a son or daughter or nearly lose one rediscover what their values are.
Right.
Psychedelic one's a very common one, and since it's a single moment, it's often recognized as the source. I think oftentimes people do have that kind of enlightenment, but the source is hard to find, or it happens gradually. Psychedelia, I mean, someone can come down from the first acid trip and go, wow, I see my values like I didn't see them before.
I'm quitting my job. I've had it.
What other experiences, I'm trying to broaden the category besides trauma and psychedelia and perhaps the forces of losing all that you're worth? Like people lose in the stock market and they jump out a window, or they go, hey, I've got choices I didn't see before. I don't have to defend my castle anymore.
Well, the two other things are near-death experience. That forces you to figure out what you really give a hoot about. And the other, I think, a little pleasanter than the near-death experience, is travel. Go live in Benares for a year and then see how this looks to you. It's not for nothing that we call these psychedelic experiences trips. The only thing I know that changes people the way psychedelics do is travel. And I don't mean this sanitized bullshit first-class United Airlines 3-star hotel travel. I mean, the real thing, down and dirty. Live like the people do if you can stand it. I mean, it's very, very difficult. I've lived with Amazon tribes, and, you're there and you're having this experience and you're thinking to yourself, everybody in my culture would wish to be with these people. These are the real, original people. Now, if they just stop throwing puppies in the fire, maybe we could sit down and enjoy their company. It's not easy. It tests your values.
So how can you bring a Western mind into a third world nation where many are fully willing to trade what environmental treasures they have for the goods of capitalism? How can you say, well, psychedelics will put you in touch with values that you don't need Coca-Cola? I had an experience in Thailand, and actually probably up in Burma, where I stopped by the village hunter shack, and every manner of endangered beast was chained for sale, and I was astounded at all these beautiful parrots that he was selling for $1, and bought one of these parrots, the healthiest one, set it free. He looks at me like I'm crazy and goes to the village store to buy cigarettes. How can we stop the bartering of the environment for capitalism? Can we bring psychedelics to that?
Or any other choice?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah.
Even another observation on that point, and that is the absence of wealth is ruining the environment.
The absence of wealth ruins the environment.
For example, when you land in New Delhi and the door opens on an airplane, first thing you get overwhelmed with is the air is unbreathable because of smoke. Well, the reason that about 50% of smoke exists is because what the people used to cook with. The rest of it is because of the cheap autos that they use. So, it's the absence of wealth that makes the air unbreathable.
Yes, I'm not advocating poverty. I'm advocating something more like simplicity. Let me describe my lifestyle to you, which sort of then is a statement about what I'm trying to do. I live in Hawaii up a terrible road with no telephone in, but I have a wireless modem out, and I have an excellent Mac, and I don't believe in the distinction between nature and technology. I am happiest when I am totally immersed in nature with the best technology available. And most things I care about are immaterial. I have books, but it's the information in them that is represented. The electricity is generated from solar. Some of the food is grown on site, more will be. But it's not like a back to the land movement or anything like that. It's very casual. It seems the natural way to live. One thing that the internet holds out for many, many people is the end of the entire cycle based on the concept of office culture and commuting. Most people who work in offices don't need to go to the office now. And the momentum continues to have commuting and so forth. But when these corporations realize how much money they could save by telling people to stay home, office culture is just going to dissolve overnight. Well, then something like 65% of all automobile travel is in the pursuit of moving to and from the job. That could all be eliminated. I think the internet is the physical analog to the psychedelics. Until the internet arose, it was very hard for me to see how we were going to get from here to the omega point. Now I have no problem. It's all in place. I mean, the internet has to grow faster. The bandwidth has to be expanded, the codes have to be simplified, the protocols have to be simplified, and everybody has to be brought online. When that happens, I think there will be a kind of natural reorganization of society, because what we're living in, and this is a McLuhanist rap, what we're living in is a linear, print-created world. It was created by printheads. They couldn't help themselves. They thought they were normal human beings, but they were very, very dramatically distorted by their relationship to typography. And they created this kind of world. Well, now we're moving into the era of electronic culture. And all kinds of phenomena associated with the old way of doing things are going to disappear. For example, a quality of print culture was the phenomenon called mass media. Mass media is finished. It doesn't make any sense anymore. Mass media is one-to-many communication. And what the internet offers is any-to-any communication. You know, we all have contempt, or I assume we do, or mild contempt, for the tabloid newspapers that we see when we check through the grocery store. Elf, or dwarf rapes nun, flees in UFO, that kind of thing. Well, but now let's think about the New York Times for a moment. The New York Times is designed for what? To be read by millions of people. Who would want to read something designed to be read by millions of people? The very nature of the goal indicates that there will be very little there for you. Only to the degree that you share some interests with all these other millions of people. And many of these interests are artificially created by the media. So other notions that were put in place by print, I think, did I mention this last night about the interchangeability of type? How I didn't. Okay. Type, as you know, is interchangeable. Manuscript is not. That simple notion of the interchangeability of the subunits of a technology permit two incredible things in our world. The idea of the citizen, and the idea of the unique individual, and also modern industrial techniques of manufacture. The assembly line is essentially where you build things the way you print things. You assemble the parts, you assemble the small parts and create completed objects. So this notion that stresses uniformity, interchangeability, and co-equality of subunits creates the entire political and social ambiance of the post-Renaissance mind. Now, something entirely different is happening. The new media is nonlinear. It doesn't require lockstep acquiescence in a model of behavior. That's why fringe elements, which were kept very much at the fringe through the reign of print, have in the 20th century broken out and managed to set the agenda of much of society. So things like surrealism, jazz, ethnic consciousness, homosexuality, different styles of dissent have in the 20th century all gained a great deal more prominence as the print culture gave way to the electronic culture. And in the future, I think these enormous structures which we're asked to participate in are just going to fade away, like national governments. I think basically we're going to live in a world which has only two levels. The local level, basically your watershed, and the planetary level. And the systems of control that lie between those two levels will be very thin and invisible. A tremendous leveling of information takes place. The print game is a game of privilege. Information confers power, and if you have it, you hold it. The electronic game is a game where all information is equally accessible and shareable, and it creates a different and more egalitarian information field. And capitalism contributes to this to some degree. I am not entirely anti-capitalistic. I think it needs to be tamed. But capitalism contributes to this. For example, what I mean by that is, think of how governments deal with information. They classify everything top secret, and then they hold it. And, well, what is the effect of that? It slows invention. It slows novelty. Well, how does capitalism deal with new information, new technologies? You get it to market as fast as you possibly can in order to ace the competition. In the capitalist set of rules, if you have a proprietary technology, to keep it secret is insane. How will you make any money if you keep it secret? You must tell it. So capitalism itself has become a force for novelty. This is what, when people started coming out of the Soviet Union as it collapsed, this is what blew their minds completely about the West, was the diversity and abundance. I remember some Russians came to me once, 5 years ago or so, when the Soviet Union was collapsing, and I was driving them around, showing them the scene, and I pointed to an A and P, and I said, "You can get any food you want in there." And the guy said, "Oh, come on." And I said, "Name a food. You can get it in there." He said, "Tangerines," like it was a knockout punch. I said, "No problem, they got tangerines stacked waist deep." And anything else you can imagine. So capitalism produces this enormous abundance, but without very much ethical concern for the process by which it's done or the consequences for the users and the environment.